Welcome back, everybody, to the ConExPOCONAGG podcast. I am your host, as always, Taylor White. One thing I need to let every single person know, if you're listening to this podcast, I need you to stop, drop, and roll and understand that we are less than 1 year away from the ConExPOCONAGG 2026. Mark your calendars from March 3rd to the 7th for 2026. And the ConExpo show, honestly, last year, it's the largest North American construction show. It is far ahead of its time for trade shows. I need everybody to head over and make sure to mark your calendars for August when tickets go on sale. Be sure to sign up for the newsletter, be the first to know about any info or exciting stuff happening over at the show, and get access to exclusive discounts. See the link in the description. With me here today, I have the one and only John Seaman from JCP from North Carolina, and he's sitting with me in person here today, which is actually super exciting, and I'm very fortunate for that. So thank you for driving out. Flying out.
Yeah, appreciate you having me, man.
Man, I have been seeing your stuff. I reached out to John originally. I'll put that out there. All right. I reached out to him. He didn't reach out to me. And I was like, dude, I've been addicted to watching your stuff. Your stuff has been like all over my feed. We were out on our job site this morning and Corey was like, oh, dude, retaining wall. I've seen this guy. And it was the classic one where your guys did the wall and then you had to like take it all down. And that was insane. You also had another one where I think the wall fell.
Yeah.
That was insane. And we were just talking about that at lunch. So like content does really well when like bad stuff happens. But to prefix all of that, give people a bit kind of rundown of who you are.
Yeah. So very similar to yourself, in the trades, we do total site development. That's our bread and butter, coming in and preparing a site for a new build, commercial, residential, or, multi-development, just someone that works in the trades, moving dirt.
How did you kind of get your start in the industry? What did you start by doing? How did you get to where you are right now?
When I was pretty young, my dad's always worked building houses for somebody. And we grew up with expensive hobbies. I raced dirt bikes on the weekends, and that's, very expensive, traveling all over, the nation. So we would do side jobs to try to come up with extra money, to go support the habit. That kind of turned into more and more. And, I left, went off to college, traveled for a couple years, come home. At that point, I, wanted to start my own gig, and I was living in Florida at the time because that's where I went to college, and that's where the business I worked for while traveling was out of. So Florida was home then. And so I had to weigh my options. Do I go to Florida and start my own gig, or do I go back home and start my own gig? And, because we had done side jobs and, people knew me back home, because really when I was in Florida, I went to school and then I was gone all the time traveling. So I didn't really build like a rapport with folks down there, So I came home and me and my pops just started doing the side gig thing again, and I was able to talk him into quitting working where he was at, and just helping me do porches, additions, roofs, sidings, stuff like that, handyman type stuff. And then I went and got my GC license, and we started doing full builds, custom homes. We did that for several years, and my dad and I worked together for about 3 of the 7 or 8 years of me doing custom homes. We butted heads a lot on jobs and with management, and, he didn't want anything to do with the business side of things. And he's an amazing craftsman and amazing at what he does, but gets frustrated with trying to manage people as well. So he wasn't really a great manager. So it's really difficult for me to fit him in a role in the business other than like mentorship with the guys, It was more important to me to have a father than someone to help with the business, and because we butted heads so often, we just decided it was best for us to part ways early on. I went and got my GC license. We started doing more and more builds, and the guy we were using for the site work side, the clearing and the dirt, he wasn't very reliable. We were at that point, we were doing 10 home plus developments, and he couldn't keep up with the workflow. So I hired some guys on, and we started doing our own dirt. Right before COVID, things got really tricky with materials. And then through COVID, things got very, very tricky with materials. And I just got really burnt out with the emotion of construction, with custom homes. But I really like the dirt, and dirt is easy, right? No one cares about dirt, right? So It was fun. It was lucrative. I liked running the equipment. At that point, I didn't know anything about any equipment other than, just crawl on it and learn. I decided I'm just going to focus on the dirt stuff. I don't want to build houses. I don't want to do the construction for people anymore. I had a really great system and really great guys at the time that I didn't want to let go. We worked together for years, and our businesses always run kind of separately. So when I hired the guys to do work, that was JC Grading. All my custom home stuff was under JC Construction. So I just kind of moved the JC Construction guys doing specs and flips, and I've got some multifamily rentals that I'd use them to work on. And so that vertical of the business kind of just went a different direction. And then I focused on the dirt, and we've built that up now over a couple of years. And
yeah, that's insane. I look at that though. It's got to be great. Like, I think you're insane for kind of like getting into the dirt, because it's like a cutthroat business. I mean, especially where you are, and I see a lot of your stuff. Like, you're on a lot of the, extreme terrain and stuff, and it's just you got to spend so much to make so much. Like, what was the draw towards looking at it? Like, did it look fun? Did it excite you?
I get very excited about the projects we do. They're very, very challenging, and we've built a reputation in our area that, when something is very difficult or someone's royally screwed a project up, we get the call, and, that makes it very hard for lots of reasons. And it's very frustrating a lot of time to go in behind somebody else who screwed a job up. But with that token that we're given, we can also kind of name our price on a lot of stuff. There's lots of things that we do on very steep terrain that it is impossible to find guys to sit in a seat to do. We've saved many, many homes from guys doing poor work or landslides or whatever. And, it's very challenging to fix those problems. And I guess the challenge of it is what we enjoy, aside from like saving someone's house, right? Because that's very emotional. But like when someone hires you to do a total site development, like you come in and you clear the land, you do their C cut for their basement or crawl space, or you put their driveway in, people aren't emotional at that point.
Yeah.
And you're the first guy in usually. So people have the money right then, versus the other end of this where someone's finishing their house up and they're out of money, or throughout that process of the house build where there's so many obstacles. There's just so much emotion involved, and job obstacles, I don't mind. Like people's emotions, I just don't have the patience for. So that was very attractive to me to like get away from that.
So how do you find it then managing a bunch of different people? Do you have more employees with the construction side now than you did with the building side?
No, even with dirt a couple years ago, the most we ever got was we tried to stay right under 50 in-house employees because of HR reasons, obviously. But with the custom home building, when, we were doing multiple houses at a time, we'd have 20 to 30 guys in-house. But then I was also using 15 to 20 different subs who now not only are you dealing with all those subs emotions, but you're dealing with all their business problems too. They promise you the world, they can't get there. Then you have to bring that bad news from 20 different subcontractors to your homeowner.
So you're kind of coming back into construction, and almost it's like, well, this is easier. This is more manageable.
It's a breeze compared to
that's crazy.
Having all the subs.
What kind of characteristics do you think like carried over that were good, like managing people or just like high stress or dealing with emotion that kind of transferred over well to what you're doing now?
I think a lot of those aspects, obviously I'm managing less people, so that's easier. You can manage better. You can manage more effectively when you have less, again, not only employees, but subs. Like I almost felt like many days I had to go to my plumber's business and run his business to get my job. I had to go to the electricians, like I had to call them like, you have this job. That's a priority. I understand. How many days do you think it's going to take for you to do that job before you can get to my job? Like, that's bullshit, man. I shouldn't have to deal with that. You know what I mean? Like I'm having to try to help manage his schedule just to get my job done. And in reality, like I've got 8 builds right back to back. Like you almost don't have time to handle everybody else's stuff. You need to just be focused on our stuff is kind of how we wanted it to work out. But you really can't tell another business owner, hey, you have to stay on my jobs back to back to back. When you're dealing with all of that on top of a homeowner's emotion and at the end of the day, that's who's paying you and paying all these other people. Like they have to be your priority and you have to keep them happy. Like that's a real challenge, man. And so that's very, very stressful. I sleep much better at night knowing that I only have to worry about my guys' emotions and one customer, you know what I mean? Versus all that other stuff. You don't know who's going to get pissed off for whatever reason and not pay you with the home stuff. the dirt stuff is so much, so much more predictable.
No, it is 100%. So you started your business, and then like what's interesting to me though is like you mentioned a lot about how you're busy. I mean, if I was to give somebody an honest opinion that like would leave here today and be like, I'm starting a business tomorrow, I'd be like, oh, dude, like get prepared, right? Because like our season is like this.
Yeah, it fluctuates.
But like, what are you doing differently to stay busy all the time? Or is your area just booming so much that there's so much demand? And then also you just had Hurricane Helene
Yep, that's correct.
roll through. And so maybe to kind of touch on like demand for work, how you manage to stay busy and then managing all that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of businesses in the trades that are extremely seasonal, right? Like you can everything you think of, right? Like painters, builders, dirt work,
Yeah.
like grass, hardscaping, everything you think of has a season. You know what I mean? And I wasn't used to seasons with building, right? Because people want houses built year round. It doesn't matter. The only thing that you got to worry about with that is concrete. If you can get your concrete done before December to February, then you can keep building year round. So you got one vertical you got to worry about, sitting down and trying to plan and budget. Like the first 2 years was pretty difficult for us because with building, and especially when you build multiple homes at a time, about every month you get a big check coming in that's going to keep you going and paying the bills and stuff. Well, with the seasonal, work that we're doing, the first 2 years, I didn't really predict that, and so there's winters that slow down, and especially like right before tax time and Christmas and stuff, like people are saving their money and they don't have the influx of cash coming in, and it's not nice outside. We got to the point where like cash was really tight for a couple of years in the wintertime, and I never want to let any of my guys go. I don't want to let them sit at home for a couple months. And I know there's some guys that build their whole business around like, we're going to work these 8 months of the year and then 4 months a year you guys can have off. And maybe some of the older guys are cool with that. But I think a lot of this
guys aren't. They want to work.
New generation, they want to work and they need to work.
Yeah, I agree.
Anyway, me at that point, I was younger too. I'm only 33 now, and I've, been doing this for a couple of years now. So I was the same way. I want to work year round, Well, we had built great relationships with contractors. We do residential work, we do commercial work. We work for a lot of contractors. We work for the municipality, the state government, city, county. We do all kinds of stuff. We didn't do that then. We only focused on residential stuff and some of the other contractors. And that's why things would slow down a little bit. But the city's demoing stuff year round. City's putting in roads year round. These contractors who are building custom homes have to continue building year round. Again, the only thing they have to worry about is getting the concrete done, So if you're working for a bunch of contractors and they're building year round, they're going to need you to clear. They're going to need you to backfill, And so I've kind of just structured the business to work for, it's just diversifying, right? Like, you don't put all your eggs in one basket. So, and, we don't have like snow in the wintertime that a lot of guys will go and like, a lot of our students in the north, they'll, plow and stuff like that. And we don't have that. So we had to try to find things that we could do during the wintertime, stay busy. And we do a lot of land clearing. If you're only moving dirt, like, there's a lot of larger companies where we're at that only do bulk dirt, and they'll have to slow down in the wintertime, with frost and stuff. But we just moved to a different stream.
And then how did you manage? Do you have this, super heavy workload? And then how do you manage something like Hurricane Helene coming in and throwing a kibosh in all your plans that you had? Because you were directly, like, you got right affected by this.
Yeah. Yeah. So we live in Marion.
How bad was it?
Yeah. The Asheville area, dude, got smacked, man. And we're 20 minutes from there, so us just being right outside of it, we had some effects. And of course, we immediately started getting calls for trees on houses and stuff like that. And we took care of everybody in, Marion where we lived. We've done this for so long that we have, a huge customer base in the Asheville area. And those folks started calling immediately, and really good customers up there that we wanted to take care of. And you literally couldn't drive. There wasn't roads open from Marion to Asheville, which again is only 20 minutes away, but like you got to go up and over a mountain to get to Asheville, and the whole mountain was washed out. So we fought our way to get over there. Like, state and highway patrol and stuff didn't even want us to try to travel that way because there was no roads. And we fought our way to get over there and, worked for days. There was, long section of road that it took us almost 48 hours straight of just cutting with 2 skid steers and a grapple and eight guys with saws, just cutting our way through the mountain to get to these people.
How are like you get fuel and everything?
There was no fuel.
So whatever you had in reserves at the yard was what you had.
Fortunately we have 1,000-gallon fuel tanks.
Yeah.
If you drove an hour the opposite direction towards Hickory, North Carolina, there's little areas that got almost no impact. Hickory, it was very weird. Hickory got no impact, so they still had fuel. There was no power where we were in Marion and Asheville. No power, no cell service.
How long?
Weeks.
Didn't Starlink come in and give you guys service or no?
There was several folks like that. Verizon had like a mobile hub, but that didn't happen for, a week or so. Like you couldn't get.
How were people talking?
They weren't. There was no communication, man. The military come in, they were flying Black Hawks in and stuff.
And were you guys like, what's going on?
No, I mean, we knew, was in devastation, but like no one could communicate.
So how did you know how to get out there and where to go?
In the evenings, I would drive the hour opposite direction.
Get service.
Yeah, like, I got a wife and kids. Like I've brought them to a hotel down that way, like let them shower and stuff and go to a restaurant and eat, and get cell phone service. And you would just be inundated with calls, man, like thousands of calls and texts and messages.
That'd give you so much anxiety. Just
you couldn't keep up, man, with how much was coming in. And so I literally just went like back to old school. Like I had a notepad and I'd go and I'd get all these messages and I didn't even have time to follow up with everybody. I was just writing down names and addresses.
Crazy. And you just show up.
And we'd just go to that area and we'd work to get to people. And
how would you like go about in this process, like giving somebody a price to do the work, getting paid for it?
We didn't price anything. We never talked about a price on.
You do it and then be like, it's this much.
Yeah. So there was 2 or 3 jobs, which were like landslide stabilization jobs that we talked about a rough figure within $100,000 usually. But that was weeks into, like we weren't worried about.
It was the first initial.
The first initial was like, let's get access to these folks. I can't tell you how many elderly folks we knocked on their door and we had food and snacks because we were the first ones to get to them. And they were like, oh, thank God. I thought I knocked on a door on someone who had deceased. Like the lady was on oxygen. I didn't know who lived in the house. These are huge houses, and there's 4 different doors. I'm knocking on all the doors and I know someone's at home because there's cars in the driveway. There's no way for people to get in and out, and the lady takes like 15 minutes. She's almost out of oxygen is what took her so long. And we had cut her way in there and, called the ambulance. They came, brought her more oxygen. And
that's wild.
All these people were so appreciative, like, oh, we haven't had food or water or nothing, and we got all these snacks and stuff for them. And so.
Did you film that?
Yeah, that's all.
It's on YouTube?
I don't know that we've put everything on there because some of it was a little raw, you know what I mean? But yeah, most of it is. And a lot of it, we have our
crazy stuff to live through, man.
Oh man, I'm certain there's tons and tons and tons of people in the mountains that will have lifetime PTSD from this. The stories that we've heard are like, I don't ever.
Where you were staying, what was the storm like where you were?
In Marion?
Like your actual house, like were you with your family?
Yeah.
Like guys, like let's get to a basement or like.
Yeah.
How insane was it?
Where we were at in Marion was a lot of like, not extreme wind, but lots and lots of rain. And in areas of Marion, extreme flooding, like over rooftops. A buddy of mine owns a marina. You couldn't even see the entire building was underwater. One of the strip malls, like it was up to their roofs, and they've had a hydrovac, all those. Some of the buildings, some of those people just completely went out of business. But in the north part of the county, man, I don't even know if we should share some of this stuff, but like people watch their family just get washed away, watch their house get washed away. And, like look at a man and hear that story. Like it's pretty rough,
Crazy.
And there's another area in the county where there was 3 houses, in it, like 30 something family members, like the entire land is gone, and they were at home, so yeah, I mean, it's way more than trees and buildings being flooded, like people have lost, there's thousands and thousands of lives gone. Like, and if you look at what's really weird about the whole thing is if you look at all the statistics and what the media has put out, they'd say like a couple hundred, but being there and seeing it, like I seen a couple hundred ourselves, like never mind the EMTs who have had to deal with like pulling people out of rivers. You know what I mean? There's thousands of
So the cleanup work, like when there was a tornado that ripped through town here. I mean, geez, 6 years ago, I think now. And actually the town where our pit was that I took you to, and devastated the town. And we mobilized the next day, put our shovel on a float and drove right into town.
Yeah.
And we're like, where do you need trees cleared off of? What do you need help with? And it was like the fire department set up at the local school. I remember walking into the lobby and then being like, unload here and start helping here. But then the communication from them wasn't them on site. We ended up spending the whole day just doing absolutely nothing because it was like, we got to wait for hydro to come in, turn off the power lines because there's bent power lines. Like, and it was not to the scale at all of what you're talking about. So that's why I can only imagine like owning a business where you want to help and do stuff, not even thinking about the money at that point, like you just said, but like, what was the communication like from like, homeowners need stuff done, but like, whoa, we can't actually go and do that yet because we're not allowed.
That's a great question. And if you talk to lots and lots of contractors who traveled to North Carolina, and let me also preface this with there's all kinds of different people, right? But there's storm chasers who go to storm chase strictly financially.
Yeah.
There's storm folks who go 100% to help and volunteer their time and do what they can, Pull both of those folks who are all traveling now to North Carolina to do what they can to help or to go, chase money or whatever. Well, there has to be some mitigation to that, right? Because there are no resources, right? There's no power, there's no water, there's no sewer, there's no gas, there's no food. And all these people are going to this area and they want to help. And everything you do is extremely dangerous. Like,
oh yeah,
you're cutting up bound up trees, that will, send you 50 feet in the air if you cut it the wrong way. You're dealing with driving through terrain that's unstable. You're trying to move terrain that's unstable. There's huge landslides with massive boulders that have now become loosened up, So it's not safe for everybody. This is not my advice to anybody, but I knew on the other side of a lot of those roadblocks were good people who needed help. And if they didn't get help soon, like they might die, just like the elderly lady who was running out of oxygen. So I just went around. People will try to stop you and tell you can't go here, you can't go there, but we were just going, And I think a lot of it was our presentation of having multiple trucks and all of our stuff professional and logoed and emergency hazard stuff and all the right stuff people will kind of overlook versus the volunteer who may be in a car or, someone who's coming to with a skid steer that maybe shouldn't be there. You know what I mean? And then once we did get in and people seeing what we were doing, like we had police escorts.
Wow.
Yeah. Like the police were like, oh, we know about people over here who can't get out, And so the police escorted us all night one night, going to different areas of where they knew people were stranded.
I want to talk about the money side of something like this, which is insane. But at the end of the day, you have a business.
Yeah.
You have employees that need their families fed. You have kids. You have a wife. You're putting out all this cost, all this fuel, pay, these people. How do you go about getting paid for your services to do all this? Because being a good human being obviously is one thing.
Yeah.
But there's a money side to it as well, too.
Yeah. You can only go so long with no matter how much money you have.
100%.
Right? So before you have to start bringing some back in. All of our cost was double. I put my guys on double time, because they're doing very dangerous stuff. And man, there was multiple days on end we worked straight. Like we never even went to sleep, And I mean, how do you ask a man to do that with you as an employee? Like, hey, can you come and help me work 24, 48, 72 hours straight? Like, and all you are offering them is double pay, So, we're buying all their food. Fuel is double the cost because you can't get it, and if you do, you're sending someone an hour the opposite direction to fuel up, fill up, drag up tanks, come all the way back. It's extremely costly. So fortunately, I owned a tree business for multiple years and we got really good at billing insurance companies. So we know how the insurance game worked with the tree stuff, which again, just like you said, like the gist of the insurance thing with the tree stuff is you go cut the tree, you bill the insurance company, you might get paid a couple days later. You might get paid 90 days later. It might go even longer than that if they try to argue your bill, again, having no electronic records of anything. I'm just trying to write down everywhere we worked, and we photographed everything really, really well, because that's something you have to do with insurance. Yeah. So there was some stuff like I didn't even get a chance to write it down, but I did have the photograph, or vice versa. I didn't have a photograph, but I had wrote it down. And when we did have time, we would try to put it on the computer. We have our software jobber that we use that we put everything in, and I would try to keep up with that. And I'd try to communicate back with the office, who at that point did have power. And I'd be like, we're working at this address, sending them a text, send the information, put it in there as a job, so that we remembered to go back to it at some point to bill, So our main focus was just go help as many people as we could, collect as much information for whose insurance we could possibly bill. And then there was also a ton of stuff where, insurance only pays for stuff that's on your home or driveway or car. If it's blocking the road, or if it's in your yard, or it's hung over your house but hasn't hit your house yet, they don't pay for that. So the individual would have to pay for that. And we tried to prioritize everything for those first several weeks of hey, if you can get in and out of your house, awesome. If there's something on your house, that's the next level of stuff we're taking off, and we'll tarp it. If there's stuff over your house that is going to fall on your house, that's going to have to stay there until we can get all this emergency stuff done first, And then it would go into the bigger site stuff, like retaining walls to protect homes. Like that, of course, we had to talk about money first, because number one, we're talking about a couple $100,000 on some of these jobs. And number two, the resources, the waste block, the retaining wall block, the gravel, all that stuff is number one, extremely difficult to get in regular times. Never mind now that there's not even roads. One of the plants that made all the retaining wall blocks had the whole plant is gone. Like all the blocks, the whole plant
had to start making more.
Yeah. So or
costing more,
or you buy it from 2 hours away. So we collect all the stuff we can for insurance. A lot of the customers we worked for were very, very wealthy, and, they don't care. It's blank checks. They want their properties back to normal as quickly as possible. They want to be the first ones. Yeah. It's keeping up with the Joneses in a lot of those areas. So I'd keep a couple guys working for folks like that who, those guys had worked for me for a while, and they knew the expectation of what these people wanted. Like a lot of these areas that we were working in are very high-end areas, and like in a normal time, you can't touch their grass. Like everything has to be craned out. And so, yeah, it's an emergency situation, but they still don't want their entire yard completely tore all to pieces. I mean, they got hundreds of thousands of dollars of landscaping, so you can't just go in here like a ding dong and rip everything out, So what we were doing is some of those folks who we knew would pay us really well, I'd keep my guys working there so that we could pay for some of the stuff that we knew we weren't going to get paid for, and then we'd be billing insurance in the meantime, or I'd have another crew on, a huge retaining wall job that was bringing money in, so it was a mixture. It's just kind of like the diversification I said with the business earlier. There was stuff that we knew we were doing that we weren't going to get paid on. There was stuff that we knew we were doing that we don't know when we're going to get paid on. And there's stuff that anytime I ask the customer, they're going to write me a check.
But what about FEMA?
So we didn't mess with any FEMA stuff.
Now, FEMA, what would they look after? Like, okay, roads are blocked. Yeah. We're going to hire people to go in, get the roads. We're going to hire people to bring mobile trailers to set up for the workers, or this or that. Like, is that FEMA?
That's correct. So how the FEMA thing works is the state will hire you as a contractor. So your county is who you go to and say, hey, my name is John Smith with ABC Contracting. I'm looking to help with this storm cleanup. Well, they have their own vetting process. You meet all the criteria with all your insurances and stuff, and they're going to hire you, and they're going to tell you where to go and work. And then, at whatever agreed upon terms, they're going to pay you, and then they wait to be reimbursed from FEMA. So FEMA's, state, national governments, they pay the local county stuff. So FEMA doesn't necessarily run. That's a huge misconception. You don't work for FEMA, and FEMA doesn't tell you where to go. It's the county. And the problem with that is there's not a person, there's not a door I can knock on and say, hey, we're done with this job. Can we collect payment? The county is going to tell you, you're going to get paid when we get paid. and some of that goes really, really well. And some of that works really well. And some of it, storm happened in September. I know lots and lots and lots of guys who haven't been paid $1 yet. That's not because anyone's trying to screw anybody. It's because there's a lot of red tape and a lot of things that get slowed down and held back with government stuff, And that's why we weren't interested in using our resources to go and do the stuff that FEMA would have essentially be paying for and not know if or when we're ever going to get paid back. I mean, this is
The profit margins working for FEMA would have been higher.
I've seen a lot of the contracts and what the numbers.
It's not worth, is it? No.
I mean, we're charging the same rates that those guys are getting. The only thing is it takes a lot of hustle. It's very, very, very chaotic what we were doing. I mean, it was me and Vince, really two guys that were collecting all information. And also while people are coming up, they're going to me or Vince. And now we're having to write down their information and go look at their jobs. Well, someone who's maybe not as business savvy or wants as much hustle, you just go to the county every second. You show up. It's like showing up at a job. You just show up where they ask you.
Where you want me.
Yeah. And you hope you get paid on Friday, whereas we kind of took the reins and we're controlling this, you know what I mean? So risk and reward, right? No matter what you do.
And you're still doing cleanup?
Oh yeah. And I know there's storm just come through on Sunday when we were flying out. You can't fly back into Charlotte right now. Vince.
There are fires?
There's fires, there's flooding, there's wind. It's all kind of, we cut trees Friday. Customer asked if, how long do you think these other ones are going to last? Well, it might last a day, it might last 10 years. They all look good right now. She texted me this morning and said 2 more trees blew over from Sunday storm. Fortunately, didn't hit nothing. They fell across the road. Why
are you guys getting all this crazy weather? Is that normal?
No, it's very unnormal. I'd say back in like 2018, we started getting a lot of flooding and like culverts and stuff like that. Since 2018, we've been way over engineering everything we do because we've had a lot of flooding.
And how did it handle on like some of these new bigger storms?
Knock on wood, bro. I haven't had one project that washed out even during all this flooding.
That's what people like. We had a big flood here or a big rainstorm this summer that even like the 1 in 100 year.
That's what this was, 100-year flood.
Yeah. They were being used. And it was like, wow, that's crazy. People always laugh and like, yeah, right. Like that'll never happen. You'll never see water that high. We had all the roads going up to our pit were washed out, flooded. Like people couldn't get home. Like it was insane. So, sometimes over engineering the stuff, you don't realize it, but it's like, it will freaking happen.
Yeah, man. And these things are happening more and more regularly, so, all you can.
Which is crazy, but it's good for business.
It is very good for business. Yeah.
That's why the subject is so odd, right? Because like, talk to somebody that's maybe not in the industry or something, but again, like break it down to a human level. Like you're in business to support your family and your employees' families and the kids and stuff. So it's like business is good for everybody all around, but it just sucks that it's at the hands of like natural disasters that are affecting and killing people, or people are losing their lives because of them. But like, I don't know. It's just kind of a weird concept, right? Like something like that rips through town and it's so bittersweet because it's like, holy, there's going to be a lot of work coming out of this, but holy shit, a lot of people lost a lot.
It's a very weird position for us in the trades to be in, especially folks that do like
just showcasing that. Like, I feel like
you can't. Yeah. And it also makes me feel weird when the weatherman's like, hey, we got a terrible storm coming up. And then there's all these guys that are like, hey,
on their Facebook,
get prepared for this storm. We'll be here to cut your trees. Like, let's not like sell to these people who are in devastation. You know what I mean?
I have guys online that are like that when people got flooded out, like, hours later, they're on Instagram, like dealing with flooding issues. We got you covered. And it's like, dude, people are still in the middle of trying to get to their house.
A financial burden is the last thing you want to put on someone's shoulders in a situation like that. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation like that, but I've had homes that have flooded and stuff before, with stupid stuff. And dude, it's like, $1 is the last thing you want to worry about.
Yeah.
And from being in that position, nothing as relative as these folks, I kind of knew, and we don't make posts to advertise for like, hey, we got a storm coming up. I guess over time we built a brand, people know to call us.
So working at JCP, you have all these guys that toughed you out through the storm. Like, did you find that stuff like that kind of maybe built some strong culture in the business?
It does. Yeah, it really does. And the day to day, sometimes that gets lost, right? Like If you go on so many of our reviews and our testimonials of both employees and customers, like the number one thing you see across the board is like, it's like very family felt, like everyone works as a family. Like I told you before, like we have a revolving door of a lot of guys that come and go, but we also have a really core group of guys of 10 to 15 guys that have always been with
Every
us.
business.
Yeah.
I think that's perfect.
Yeah.
The guys that come and go are going to come and go at every other business.
Yeah.
Your core guys are your core guys.
Yeah.
Like you said, like those are the guys that you keep on in the winter time. You make sure that they're getting their hours or that they're whatever, you're meeting their demands, or you got some new gear, you're giving them gear. Like you treat them kind of differently than revolving door employees almost.
Yeah. And with the day to day, sometimes a little bit of that gets lost, because it will go back to the feeling of you're the boss and I'm the employee or vice versa, but it's like stuff like this and Christmas dinners and stuff like that. Like it's a reminder of like, hey man, we're here. There's camaraderie, right? Like we're all working these straight days, what I mean? Like we're doing all this together. Like I'm looking out for y'all. Y'all are looking out for me. You know what I mean? And it sucks that things like this have to happen to like remind us of that. But it's just like a friend passes away and it reminds you how sweet life is.
Yeah.
Like you don't think about it until something bad happens,
It's so true, man. Like, day-to-day stuff, like, yeah, especially now, like I was telling you this morning, like when we built this office first, like I didn't put an office in here for myself because I was out on site all the time.
Yeah.
I was out on site. I was gone doing stuff. I'd be making topsoil. Like I just had more of a site position, and that was what I did. And now I'm in the office more. And I don't get out to the site as often. So I feel like, sometimes it's more of that. But like I think back on what you just said too about like, like loved one or whatever. Like I remember when we lost my brother-in-law 3 years ago, and like me and dad, like we had to take a couple weeks off just to deal with this scenario because it was sudden. And the whole business came together and everybody, it ran smooth. And, I just remember coming back, feeling so thankful. And it was almost like it put like a human level on everything.
It does.
And you're dead on with like, yes, at the end of the day, I'm your boss and you're working for me, but we're all here doing it together and we're under one team. And, our end goal is all the exact same. We all want to make more money at the end of the day so we can support what we want to do in our lives or our families. So it's important to have at your business. And it looks like you're doing a really good job of that.
I don't do as good of a job as I should.
You can always do better.
Yeah.
Even the same with us. You can always do better. Like there's so many different incentives. Like we were talking about this morning. Like I have a gym here. And my favorite thing is seeing when guys work out here, whether it's Alex or Kat or Steve or all these guys. Like I want to implement an incentive where it's like, I'll give everybody $150 more a month or $200 more a month if you work out, 3 times a week for 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Or something like that, because it's like,
because you want more for them and you want better for them.
And the return on it for me is you're going to be healthy. You're going to get sick less.
Yeah.
I'm going to get more work out of you because you're physically fit. Like there's more stuff to it than just like, and it's really good for you, like, I don't know, stuff like that. Whereas like you say, we could always do better. Like I totally agree. You can always do better.
I feel like that some of the best companies are able to somehow, without disaster, bring that feeling back more regularly than, stuff like that has to happen for us to feel, like
it all starts at the top though.
Yeah, for sure.
Like it all starts at the top and like how you talk to your guys, like being as a business owner, I sit at many different tables. You sit at many different tables. How I would sit at a table talking about building an $8 million building with somebody with those guys versus how I'm going to talk with my guys when they come back in the shop this afternoon are 2 different ways. And I find that it's the business owners that aren't self-aware enough to be like, I mean, I would prefer to actually sit and talk to my guys because that's exactly who I am. I was born and raised blue collar and I can relate to them. But it's like the bosses that I find like that come into these CEO positions of large corporate companies that I think are losing a lot of the touch of like culture because the people in charge, they went to some prestigious crazy school. They grew up kind of white collar and now they're in a white collar position. And the guys in the field don't really respect that because it's like, you couldn't run a dozer for 12 hours a day. So why are you trying to tell me what I'm supposed to do?
For sure. Yeah.
And that's just how the world works. Somebody has to tell you what to do. I get told what to do by my clients. Like everybody's working for somebody. There's always somebody bigger and badder.
Yep.
But like, I feel like if you can relate to them a little bit more, that definitely helps with the culture and it helps with what you're trying to build.
Yeah. And it is a challenge as a business owner because number one, if you start to have a little bit of success, sometimes that will very quickly go to your head. But at the same time, you also need to kind of carry yourself and look a certain way to reach different levels of success, to attract different people who are going to help you to get different levels of success. But at the same time, like you can't forget number one, who you are, and number two, who's helping you to do all that. Like you can't have you have to wear multiple hats, but you can't have such a big head that your head won't fit back in the other hat. And like you said, I'm the same exact way, bro. Like I grew up working right beside my dad doing whatever we could do, and that's who I am, man. And sometimes that's a challenge for me because there's many days, bro, that I'd like to just put my headphones on and go work on a machine all day long. Like I don't want to deal with all the bullshit. Sometimes I don't want to get up and go to a networking event and shake hands to try to meet people to help me get to the next level. You know what I mean? Some days I just want to be in the ditch.
Yeah.
And it's vice versa. Like, it's cold outside. You guys are out working in the freezing cold right now. Like, I don't want to do that today. You know what I mean? Like, I'd rather go to a networking event today.
Yeah.
You got to live in both lanes. You know what I mean? And just never, let your head get too big to get in trouble.
Talk a bit briefly about your, and you mentioned it at lunch, and I didn't poke and prod at it too much because I wanted to hear about it, but like your real estate side, what are you doing there?
When we kind of made a shift with the construction and the dirt,
Yeah.
I didn't want to just let the whole construction thing go, right? And there's a huge, huge, huge opportunity really all over the States. I don't know how much so here, but I assume just as much here because just driving around here today, I see so much development going on, But in the States, there's a huge need for housing.
Oh, yeah, insane.
So number one, not only is there a need, I had a group that could do all the construction because I had been doing it for years, and most blue collar folks don't have retirement plans, right? Some people will pay into a 401k. Some people, are waiting for some kind of handout or whatever, and I had nothing. I never paid into a 401k. I don't believe in that, to be honest with you. So my retirement plan was get as many rental properties as I could. And until I have enough cash flow that I don't have to work, I'll probably work literally until the day I die. But I don't want to have to, right? So kind of when we made that shift, I started, focused on ramping up the grading side. And then my construction side, we just started building out spec homes. And every other spec I'd keep as a rental, and I'd sell one, put some cash in my pocket, pay the guys. Then I'd have them build another one. Maybe I'd sell that one. It just depended on where we were working or what the site was or what area we were in. Maybe I'd sell it. Maybe I'd keep it as a rental. And so, we've done that now for a couple of years. And with JC Properties, the grading side, we built out storage facilities. We've built out campgrounds. We've built out trailer parks. We've built out apartment complexes for the county. And so I had this experience and I gained all this knowledge on how to do this development. And I thought, man, this is stupid for me to keep putting all this money in everybody else's pocket. I'm just going to do this for myself. So last couple of years, that's what we've been doing is, like I've just secured over 100 acres. It's a 32 home development. So I get to use the dirt guys to go in and develop that site. And then I get to use my construction guys to come in and build
That's sick.
the homes.
That's cool.
And, it's extremely lucrative. It's way more lucrative than custom home building or doing the dirt. And I get to use both of those to kind of do that together. The development group pays the other two businesses, so. And that's another thing that we've got going to keep us through the winter on some of the stuff too, is we do our own development where, like someone else may not be calling in December because for whatever reason, they're trying to keep Christmas money if it's, residential or the contractor didn't get his concrete done. Well, I'll send my guys to one of my sites and we'll go push roads in or we'll clear lots or we'll put septics in for new houses. And then maybe we don't have time to get to the house build right then, but we can go in and we can clear the land. We can put a driveway in. We can put septic and well in. So now it's a build ready site, which is way more profitable than just selling raw land. And it sells way easier because a lot of folks don't have the vision on a lot of like, hey, where would my house go? Where would my well go? And they don't know the whole process. So for them to be able to come in and start digging footings it sells like hotcakes versus selling raw land.
That's really cool. Like it's interesting, and I guess like I was saying, that's kind of what we've branched out and started doing on the civil side or commercial side. So it's like building projects and building, commercial buildings. And right now, like we're doing a 4-story downtown. Like it is really cool. I'm seeing the same thing where the two businesses definitely complement each other. and it works out really well, and it keeps people busy. Like this winter, we were able to keep one of our laborers going down there, helping out on site, just doing stuff. And yeah, it's really cool. We have a lot of really cool things going on. And I think that that's like super exciting.
I've never been diagnosed, but I might be OCD and ADHD and all the acronyms, man. And I just like to do a lot of things and keep a lot of stuff rolling. And it's a lot for, I think, a lot of people, but I don't sleep a whole lot either. So my brain doesn't stop, and it's always coming up with new ideas. And a lot of this stuff, man, because I started so early on, I think just comes second nature to me. It's just how my brain works, and I see I have experience really from buying the property to turnkey home. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of opportunities that I see that a lot of people I don't think would without the experience, so hard for me to pass up on opportunities,
And people want to watch and see what you have going on and everything. I mean, that's how we found out about you. And I think that's so cool is TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, John Seaman, right? Or is it JCP?
No, it's official. John Seaman is what we put on everything now. So JC Property Professionals has its own pages for all of that.
Now, why separate it? Because that's been something that I've wanted to do for a while, because I find it sometimes it's like, I don't know what the right wording is, but I like confused. Like,
yeah,
like I'm kind of just showing myself and what I have going on. I don't really want to speak for the whole company of what we're doing right now. So why did you separate it?
So for a lot of folks that are watching that may not understand, there is a difference between building a business brand and building a personal brand.
Yep.
There's lots of things that can happen good and or bad to a business brand, but you pretty well control the narrative of your personal brand, right? And no matter what you do and decide to do in business, the personal brand follows you everywhere. I believe that people buy from people, not a business.
Yes.
So I just thought it was best to build my personal brand, which shows everything we do, right?
Oh yeah, it's the same thing we're doing. But if I were to restart all over again, I would tell somebody, like, I would tell myself, if I could go back in time, I don't regret anything. Like, I'm so privileged of where we've gotten online, but I would say, change your channel name to just Taylor White.
Yeah.
Just do Taylor White. Yeah. Don't do Ken White Construction. Because I've had it in the past with previous employees that have been here in management being like, dude, I went out for dinner on the weekend and I saw a guy and he was like, why is your boss jumping off an excavator on YouTube? And like, it's your company. And like, I put them in a weird spot because they're like, that's your business's YouTube and your boss is putting that out there, where I don't personally give a shit.
Right.
They did. But I struggle with that still to this day. Like, what I post on my Instagram even is so different than what I posted 4 years ago on my Instagram.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, I used to post me saying like, in this, that, and then I'd get out of my truck and film a dance I'd be doing to some song in the middle of a storm. Yeah. But now I think about, Instagram has changed also too.
Yeah.
I think about all of my clients that I have that are in some really high up places that give us some really high end work. And I'm like, what the fuck if they saw this? What would they think?
Yeah.
And that's what I struggle with, because I want to show what I'm like.
Right.
Because my personality is what makes me, I find interesting online.
Yeah.
I mean, I've made myself the protagonist of social media.
Yeah.
But I also want to showcase the awesome professional work that Ken White Construction does. So that's why I find it interesting on why you did that. And that's why I would tell anybody listening, really think about it from the start.
I guess I'm a little more fortunate because I did think about it starting out, and we do our businesses all have their own, but the businesses don't ever do as well, right? Because again, people buy from people, and I'm the same as you. Like
and because they're not doing what I was talking about. Like,
yeah, exactly. That's
following
what yeah. People like your content because you fuck around and you're goofy, and you just show who you are, which is why you're also relatable to your guys. You can have that relationship with your guys. Also, people who are watching the content are the same motherfuckers who are on the machine, just like your guys, and they know that you're the same dude. Like it's just like, us sitting here bullshitting and hanging out. You know what I mean? Like, it's just who you are, and that's what you want to show, and there's a place on social media for your business and it to, like you said, appear like you need it to appear for the right clients and for them to show people, hey, this is who's doing our work. And there's a place for you to be you, man. You know what I mean? And build your brand and show who you are. It's never too late.
No, I know.
Never too late, right? They say the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. So
Awesome quote. I totally believe that as well too. I mean, it's tough because like I might actually do it. Like I have no idea. I'm in this weird confusing spot, and I was telling you about it even this morning too, where it's like I got to stop with the I have to do every 2 weeks because this, and I have a brand deal and this. And
Yeah.
no to that. Like social media is a weird thing, and like
Again, it's just like we talked about earlier. Like, don't forget, what made you. You know what I mean? Like,
started with a GoPro in my
yeah, exactly. Like, so stick to who you are, man, and do you. And people buy into that or they don't buy into that. That's our big thing. I brought Riley with me, my videographer, my content specialist. And I tell her all the time, like, I don't give a shit, Riley. Don't edit anything I set out. Just post it. It's reality. That's what people want to see, and that's why people relate to us. Is because they go through the same thing every day. You don't know how many people, hundreds of people, have stopped me and said, "Dude, I really appreciate your content. Like, we deal with the same shit every day, and I thought I was the only one.
Oh yeah,
I thought I was the only one who dealt with this or that or all this bullshit that happens. And I was about to quit because I thought I was the only one dealing with this. But I see you're dealing with it every day, and I see all the people commenting like, "Oh, this happened to me too." And it just makes humans humans.
Yeah, you show it really well. You make it sound easier than it is because like you're smarter than what you're leading on, like on how you're showing it and how she creates the content. She does an awesome job. I had the privilege of meeting her today too. She's awesome at what she does. She knows, like I can see like the red thing, like when she's filming, when she's not. And I'm like, yeah, like you get it. Like this, we've been rambling, and you'll notice like the camera kind of goes away because it's like, well, yeah, like you're just gonna take this out anyways.
Yeah.
So you show it really well, and I think that that's a really crucial part of what to show and how much to show of it, I guess. Yeah, social media has been huge, and I would encourage anybody to go, watch your stuff, the official John Seaman on anything, because I know you offer courses as well on there, dirt for dollar. Not even like you have free courses as well too. It's not it's all paid stuff, which I think is really cool too, because you're doing that for a lot of people. But I mean, we have a full afternoon, you and I, so it's not like I made him fly here just for this little can fly. He chose to fly, but
we like to
come in and
talk up in person, man.
Yeah, I love it, dude. Thank you so much for coming.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you having me.
Thank you guys for listening and watching, and we will see you guys on the next podcast. And at ConExpo, March 3rd to the 7th, August, get your tickets. Very important to do that. Sign up for the newsletter for all the upcoming discounts, because there will be discounts and whatever tickets are available. We'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.